Hi, I'm Floyd Getchell, and it's March 21st. Welcome to episode 3 of the Unspoken Narrative. Today, we're going to be talking about survival and how this falls into the unspoken narrative is we're going to be talking about urban survival, which is a subject that is hardly touched upon at all. We all watch these wilderness survival shows, but only a small portion of us would ever find ourselves in these situations. 82% of people in North America actually fall, actually live in urban areas, and very few of us would ever find ourselves in these extreme circumstances where we're out in the woods. It very rarely do people find these ourselves out in these situations. And if you watch some of the shows, the survival situations, like I won't name them, but the situations are just made up, and I can't even watch them. They're disingenuous. Anyway, so that's why we're covering this. I have a lot of knowledge. I need to get it out to you folks so you'll benefit. This is actually where this came from. I had a very close friend of mine, Christy, and she asked. It was 2011. She was so wonderful. She threw together a welcome home party for me when I got back from Afghanistan, and the Mayan calendar was getting ready to reset, and everybody was kind of, I don't know if they were freaking out about it, but they were concerned. That's a good word. They were concerned, and I just went, well, I'm set. And she went, well, what about the rest of us? And I started throwing some stuff together, and you're going to benefit from that. So, to start, and you can go ahead and pause as soon as I put this up here, don't panic. You notice it says down the bottom there, let me get fingers out of the way, Doug Adams, more correctly, Douglas Adams. Some of you will recognize that. That's 3x5 version. Here's the 5x8 from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because on every Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, on the back in big friendly red letters, it says, don't panic. All right? The psychology of survival. You have to first, don't panic, okay? Because fear causes it causes you, fear will put you in fight or flight mode, okay? Those are your base reptilian brain instincts, and you're gonna freak out and get yourself killed. You're either gonna fight when you shouldn't, or you're gonna run away and take yourself out of relative safety into danger. Don't want to do that. The other thing, the fight thing, is ego based, and your ego will get you killed. That's going to be a recurring theme throughout this. Your ego will get you killed. Don't don't let that happen. And one of the keys to this, to avoid fight or flight, prepare your mind. Have a prepared mind so you can, okay, I've already, in your head, you can say, I've already thought my way through this situation. I'm mentally prepared for it. And then the next factor is to have a flexibility of mind. Successful military leaders have flexibility of mind. You have a plan, but you have to have a willingness to change from the plan as the situation changes. That's the key to success, and success in survival. You're trying to, your initial plan, you have to evacuate, okay? There's nothing staying in your home. Say your house is on fire, or your house is getting hit by the lava flow. You got to get out of the house. So you grab your stuff, throw it in the car, you got to get out of there. All right. And the idea is to evacuate by car. All of a sudden, the lava flow is over the road. Well, now you got to have to walk. Well, you can't be stuck to, I still have to drive. Well, that doesn't work because, well, I can drive some other way. Well, traffic's blocked. No, you got to quickly flip to, and you have to have a plan for, and you have to have brought your shoes and your changes of socks so you can walk. You have to have flexibility of mind in order to change the plan. Okay, the three factors in survival based needs are shelter, water, and food. And people misprioritize these because they they put shelter last because we all think of shelter as like housing and stuff like that. Shelter can be shelter from the immediate elements. You can die of hypothermia in 20 minutes or less. Okay, if you fall in the water and get wet, or if you get wet and then you get out of the water and then you're in a sub-zero environment, you can be dead in 5 minutes from hypothermia. So shelter, water, food, okay, or protection from the elements, water, then food. Water, you can only last 3 days. Food, some people in extreme survival situations have gone 30, I think the record's actually in the 40 days with no food. Okay, we don't want to do that. All right, what you need to do to start out with is, this is back up slightly here. Wearing a combat shirt. This is a British combat shirt. I live in the desert. This is a desert combat shirt. Okay, extreme situation where I have to go run around and fight. I might wear this. You do not want to wear this. You do not want to go out in survival situation. You're watching this because you're thinking survival. You're thinking, I need to be prepared. You don't want to go out and spend a bunch of money and buy what we call cool guy gear in the firearms industry. You don't want to do that. You don't want to buy stuff like this. You want to buy stuff that makes you blend in and look like a refugee, like everybody else in your survival situation. Okay? You don't want to do this. And that's why I wore this. All right? You don't want to look like this. Part of the survival mindset, and your ego will get you killed. Okay? You don't want to do this. You don't want to be wearing the cool guy gear. You don't want to be flashing your kit. You don't want to be showing off to your neighbors, because your neighbors may get so desperate, they may freak out and come try and take your stuff. You don't want to tell anybody that. Even your relatives, because your relatives, some of my relatives are they would take my stuff without even thinking about it. So I don't tell them. Okay, they have no idea what I have. They have no idea my level of preparedness. I think a lot of them, they know how much combat I have under my belt, and they're just afraid of me, and we'll just keep it that way. Okay, they can just be afraid of me and we'll all be good. All right, so first thing you're going to grab, if you have it available, do not run out and buy it, but these things are awesome. The reusable grocery bag. These things are great. When I first ran across these things, I like, that is perfect for survival. They are lightweight, they are durable, and you can use them for all sorts of crazy stuff. Okay, grab one of these, and you're going to run around your house right now. You're also going to add this to your list. Remember, we started either a 3x5 card, 6x4, 5x8, and we put "Don't panic" on it in big friendly red letters. The list is going to be water, and then food, like canned food, but you're going to get bottles of water, a couple bottles of water in there, like 4. And each person in your household needs to have a grab bag. And the reason is the next item. Trackies or sweats, okay, top and bottom. And then also underwear, top and bottom. 2 pair of socks, okay. Preferably wool. And I know wool, if you can, wool's itchy for some people. The reason wool, when it's wet, will still keep you warm. All right. Cotton won't do that. We'll get into that later. Walking shoes. If you have an extra pair of walking shoes that you can walk some distance in, throw those in the bag too. A knife. Okay. And we'll get into knives in a bit here. Lighter. Okay. You need 1 or 2 lighters. You also need a can opener. Okay. And then toilet paper, 2 rolls. We all learned in 2020 that toilet paper can become a scarce commodity. Wet wipes, okay, they call them they're a whole bunch of names, so they're not baby wipes, but I don't know, I'm strong enough in my masculinity to call them baby wipes. I don't care. Then garbage bags and duct tape, not duct tape, but duct tape. All right, it's for taping ducts, not ducks. Quack. All right, anyway. And the reason is garbage bags, large garbage bags for like trash cans, big trash cans. Reason is you can use them, tape 2 together, cut the bottom out of one, tape 2 together, and you just made yourself a waterproof sleeping bag. All right. You uh, flip it upside down, cut a head hole in it, got arm slots in it, and you just made yourself a raincoat. All right. All sorts of uses for them. You can put, say, you need to, you found a whole bunch of other stuff or whatever. You can use it for a temporary container, like it was actually designed for. 2 or 3 garbage bags, throw those in there as well. Okay. Food. Come back to food. You can throw, if you have a couple of cans of food laying around, throw those in there. Make sure you can open it either with a pop top like this one has on it, or the can opener. Back to the can opener. Can opener, the best one out is from the old Army sea ration can. It's called a P38. The best variation of those is a Canadian P38. It's a little larger than the American P38, and therefore it has better leverage. All right, those things are great. They're relatively inexpensive. Pick them up for $1 or $2. Just so you know, I am not sponsored by anyone. Any of the products, the brand name products I show you, are from I have purchased myself. Nobody's given them to me. And it's from years of research, what works for me, what I've used in the past, and it's the best thing for the money. I'm Scottish, I'm cheap, but when I buy stuff, I buy quality. And so that's just how it is. All right. So I'm going to put the list that goes in the grab bag initially up on the screen, and I'm going to do a wardrobe change. All right. Next, if you have time to evacuate, time to change clothes, what to wear. And ideally, you want to wear jeans and just regular street clothes and your walking shoes or hiking boots or whatever that you're going to be able to walk a distance in, because you never know how far you're going to walk. Or you're going to want to, if you're driving out, that's what you're going to want to get in your vehicle, because you may have to abandon your vehicle. You have the fires in Hawaii a few years ago, and then also the fires in California. You had numerous examples of people having to abandon their vehicles and walk. So you always need to be prepared to walk. With that, in preparing for disaster, you need to come up with a walking routine and just go out and walk with your family, walk around the block, whatever. Great family bonding time. Take an opportunity to walk. Jeans are great. However, jeans, when they get wet, are terrible for your body's heat conservation. All right. They do okay flame retardant wise, because most jeans are cotton. You want to start reading labels. Wool, cotton, silk, and leather are naturally flame retardant. And you want to think, when you are wearing your clothes or purchasing your clothes or selecting your wardrobe, you want to think about that. When I fly, that's all I wear, just in case. Okay, you start having a bad day on an airplane. But flying is still way safer than driving. Driving, we kill in the United States. I don't know about Canada and Mexico or the other Central American countries, but we still every year kill 30,000 people on the highways every single year. The number of drunk driving has gone down markedly. Distracted driving, people on their cell phones. Okay, get off your freaking cell phone. Nothing's that important. Your stupid ass cell phone conversation or whatever is not worth anybody else's life, including your own. Anyway, with clothing and shelter, as we talked about earlier, your body loses heat through conduction and convection. Best way to describe that, when you're in the swimming pool, most of us remember this when we were a little kid. When you're in the swimming pool, you're playing in the water, you get out, and you're cold because the air is blowing on you. And the air you're losing heat through convection. The wind is convecting heat away from your body. Then how do you get heat back? You go lay on the cement by the pool that's nice and warm. Well, then you are conducting heat into your body. So when you're out and about, you don't lay directly on the ground. Say you've walked for a ways in your survival situation, you want to lay down and get some sleep. You put a pine boughs down on the ground, and that is going to keep you insulated from the ground, and that is going to prevent you from conducting your body heat into the ground and losing body heat. And then you put up a windscreen around you that is going to keep you from losing body heat from convection. And there's a really effective, easy way to make a shelter for you. It's called the debris hut. And what you do is you take a log, downfall log. I'm going to throw up a picture of this, a debris hut, and the log lays down, and then you put pine boughs down for the bedding of the debris hut, and then you throw pine boughs over it, and it'll actually keep a lot of rainfall off of you. And then you crawl in there, and your body will actually heat up that air space in there and warm you up. And in certain situations, it can even dry you out. Okay. If you do decide now, if you do decide to evacuate, you need to think about the you need to evaluate your whole, whether or not you need to evacuate. You need to look at various evacuations routes. Are you going to drive out? Are there choke points like bridges, or in your neighborhood? Do you live in a huge neighborhood that only has one route out? Is there an alternate route? The other thing to do is a lot of green belts. This is one of the things that I have always found fascinating is there'll be this giant traffic jam in an evacuation situation, and people aren't deciding to drive through the green belt to get the heck out of there. I'd be going for it through the green belt to get the heck out of there. Alternate methods of travel. You have bicycles, and a bicycle is amazing. You can take a piece of plywood, a smaller piece of plywood, and you can make a backing over the rear tire and a shelf that comes out horizontally, say maybe 10 inches, and you can strap a large backpack on each side and carry several hundred pounds of gear on there. The other thing, one of the easiest things, old piece of luggage. I have an old roller suitcase that I traveled around the world with, and it's beat to stink. And I can load that up with kit and look like the most sad refugee ever during a evacuation, and nobody's going to be the wiser. And it is going to be full of all sorts of nasty surprises for any bad guy that wants to hurt me. Okay, boat. Is there a boat? Can you get out of your area by boat, or away from danger by boat? If you're in a low-lying coastal area, one of the things you got to think about though is tsunamis. If there's an earthquake or a large landslide, and then walking is you always have to think of that. Water. Okay, once again, I'm not sponsored by anybody but these guys. Okay, and the filter you want to get, it's right around $100. It is a stone filter, and the thing you're looking for in the description, I won't give you the model number. Like I said, I'm not sponsored by them. You're looking for the filter that gets out what is called Giardia. It's a little parasite in there. It actually comes from beavers, of all things. They're getting us back for us killing millions of them during the fur trade era of the 1840s. Anyway, it's a joke, bad one. But anyway, the Giardia will give you dysentery, which will make you dehydrated, and you will die. So you get that filtered out with that filter system. There are also, if you live in a saltwater area, there are also saltwater hand filters. Those things cost about $2,000 a whack, though, and so therefore they are expensive. The best water bottles that I've found for long-term storage are actually soda bottles. The soda in them is not good for you, but the bottle itself, because it is designed to hold that acidic material in the plastic bottle for an extended period of time, that bottle is great. It's whatever lining in there is just amazing. I've had water in a soda bottle. It came out of my reverse osmosis system, so it's not distilled or anything like that, but just through the RO system in a water bottle in the Arizona heat in my car for over a year. Still couldn't taste the plastic in the bottle or in the water when I drank it a year later. It was just absolutely amazing. So soda bottles for long-term water storage are just really incredible. All right, food, canned food in your go bag. Um, you want to have a can opener with it or a pop top. The other thing, I don't know if I mentioned this or not before, dog food. Some people, you're out, say you're stuck in traffic, people will put protein bars in their go bags or candy bars or whatever. Kids will get in there, kids will eat them. Or maybe you're just stuck in traffic and you're just like, we get bored and we start snacking. People will grab the protein bar, the candy bar, or whatever, forget to replace it. Canned food makes it more difficult. Dog food, you're not going to eat that until you are really hungry. And some people go with that option. Freeze-dried food. Freeze-dried food is great, long-term storage. The drawback is high water use. And then the idea of living off the land. That's a long-term survival thing, and you have to know how to skin animals and things like that. Eating a bunch of rabbits, there is a such thing as rabbit starvation because rabbits don't provide a lot of protein. You need to educate yourself on that. Always have a can opener. Okay, while you're doing your evaluation, and I'll throw this list up there as I'm reading through it here. Okay, you have your local threats that you need to evaluate are the potential for fire, floods, tsunami, hurricanes or typhoons, earthquake, landslide, chemical spills, pandemic, famine, meteor or comet impact, and then earth crust displacement. Can you remove yourself is a question you need to ask. And then do you need to remove yourself? Okay, fire, you have a fire sweeping through the area. That's pretty huge, like we saw in the California fires in Hawaii. You need to get out of there. Your bail bag in your car, there are certain times for myself, my bail bag when I'm on long trips actually has mask and fins in it. And I know that may sound, and buoyancy devices. I have a swimmer vest, and they're because of bridge collapses, and that is always handy. Like I can as if my truck or whatever is going in the water, I can grab that as it's going in the water. I always have a window brake device, or as we're going along, because our bridges are getting older in the United States, and we've seen several of them collapse. I go in the water, I want my mask, and I want my buoyancy device, and I want my fins. And they're not big giant fins, they're just the little tiny, we call them duck fins. They're little tiny short fins. They slip over my shoes or my boots, and I'll be able to paddle around, help myself, and possibly help other people. But anyway, you need a flotation device. Dry bag is a good idea. Oh, go bags in the car. You should have a go bag in your car, but don't let it be visible for somebody just walking by. Have it in the trunk, under the seat. I have had a go bag stolen. It was a totally, we talked about not cool guy gear, not having cool guy gear. It was a cool guy bag, and somebody just walked up, smashed my window, and grabbed it. Okay. So don't have it out of the way, and don't have it, just have it look like something that's not a cool guy bag. All right. The tsunamis, and if you're in a tsunami area, that's something you should always think about. Fire, if you live like on the California coast, the Southern California, you always have the Santa Ana winds, and there's always a fire threat. So that's just something you've got to learn to live with. You should always have all your photos, family photos, backed up somewhere, stored in an alternate location, stuff like that. Everything else can be replaced. Okay, for the most part. Okay, the family photos I think is a big thing. Floods. If you live in a floodplain, I live in a floodplain where I live by the Gila River, but I live in a tributary of the Gila River, and the flood would have to be freaking biblical proportions to flood me. But I still have a boat. Okay, I have a Zodiac that I can pump up and do crazy stuff with, and but you know, and like I said, I'm also prepared to get wet when I go other places. Uh, Hurricanes and typhoons. Hurricanes in the Atlantic, typhoons in the Pacific. In Arizona, we actually get pasted by, it's funny, tsunamis aren't an issue here in Arizona because we're too far inland. But anyway, um, typhoons actually come up the Gulf of California and dump massive amounts of water on us, which take us back to flooding. So anyway, that's how we get hit here. But that is something to think about: massive amounts of water and the storm surge, which is insane. Try to evacuate before it shows up. We've got really good weather alerts and stuff like that. Earthquakes, everybody's susceptible to earthquakes all over the planet. And some of these are interlocked, landslides. Chemical spills. Chemical spills is actually what started the whole bail bag thing with me. I rolled into probably 84, 85, working as an industrial safety supervisor, and rolled up providing oxygen, like uh, for the technicians to work with as they pulled 4 chlorine tanker cars out of the Yellowstone River near Frenchtown, Montana. And I rolled up to the next town to the east, pulled into the fire station, and there were all the evacuees setting in the clothes that they ran out of their houses with, because that's how that thing rolled down. Fire trucks rolling down through town going, everybody get the heck out of Dodge. And they just all ran and got the heck out of the town. And they didn't have anything. They had their clothes, and that was it. And that's where the idea for this civilian bail bag come from. We have them in the military, but they're full of guns and ammo and hand grenades and stuff. But the idea for the civilian bail bag, that's where it came from that incident that I was. It was the crew that was doing the work to empty the. They didn't spill any chlorine. Didn't go into the river or anything like that. They got it all out of it. But yeah, it was me and those 4 guys that could go in there, and even the local fire department wasn't qualified to get in there. Anyway, but chemical spills, and where you find out about, there's always, find out where you are in relationship to your railroad, you know, and you're not going to stop the railroad from hauling chemicals, but just be aware that it's there. The other thing is go to your local fire department and ask them about local industry, and they have to tell you what the hazards are around your area. Pandemics. Okay, we had COVID. COVID's was terrible, but the Spanish flu of 1918 was way worse. Just, I guess, learn from COVID and learn what governments try to do. Famine. Famine is, they can be real. They're normally caused by drought. They can also be instituted by governments, as we saw with Russia in the Ukrainian famine in the 1920s, I believe it was. And everybody wonders why Ukraine and Russia hate each other. That's why, one of the reasons why. That, and when the Nazis went through there, and then because okay, you have the famine, and The famine was so bad that there are actual pictures of meat vendors on the streets in Ukraine selling parts of people in the 20s, and then there was another famine in the 30s, and that's in Ukraine. And there, it was all because the Russian Soviets showed up and took away all the wheat to feed the factory workers in Russia, and there was no food, and it was horrid. But then the Nazis show up during World War II, and the Ukrainians think, yay, you got rid of the Russians, and the Nazis were just as bad. And they go, well, this sucks. And then the Russians show back up, and the Russians go, you liked the Nazis, we're going to be mean to you again. And the Ukrainians are like, no, we didn't. We weren't nice to them because they were mean to us. And the Stalin didn't want to hear it. So that's why they hate each other to this day, is the famine. That's what started it. So anyway, and then you have other man-made famines in China, communist China by Mao, such a great leader. And then you have, anyway, I digress. But then you have famines that are caused, and famines can be caused by these other things too, a breakdown of the food delivery system, things like that. Next one we get to, and this is something we just recently started understanding, like in the 80s and 90s, like you had this big hole in Arizona, meteor crater, and they thought that was a volcano for the longest time. And then the was it Levy figured out that that was a meteor impact, and then they started figuring out all these other holes in the earth are meteor impacts. Then they figured out the Carolina Lakes are actually secondary meteor impacts, and then they started going, man, that was a big meteor. So anyway, Earth gets hit with meteors. It changes things. All right, comet impacts. You have meteor and comet impacts. Meteors are solid iron and stuff like that. Comets are ice. All right, then the last one, Earth crust displacement. The surface of the Earth shifts around the core. A little over 10,000 years ago, Antarctica used to be about where South America is now. That's why there are maps that are really old that show dry land Antarctica, because ancient mariners that used to sail all over the world knew what it looked like. All right. Anyway, that happens. It'll be interesting. Anyway, so how can you remove yourself from it? Okay, do you need to remove yourself from it? Oh no, cards are out of order. All right. So, anyway, you need to figure out if you're going to walk. All right, you need to figure out your routes. Okay, you need to, first off, are you going to you need to figure out your methods of transportation. Are you going to be able to drive out? Certain areas just have too many, especially along the coasts, there are just too many choke points to drive out of there. Like San Francisco Bay Area, you have the bridges. I mean, they had the earthquake. Was it back in the 90s? It just collapsed all the bridges, and the only way to drive out of there was through San Jose. Isn't just crazy? Then you have fires that block, and then people abandoning their vehicles because they're not prepared. You should always have at least half tank of gas in your vehicle, and then if you're able, store extra gas in your home. I know a lot of people can't store gas in their home. I can store gas where I live. I have outbuildings that I can put gas in, and it's not a fire hazard. So I have extra gas available to get me well the heck out of there. If I do need to displace, I shouldn't need to displace or any of these things. The Trying to think, pandemic, I'm just going to hold down. Fire, I doubt there'd be a fire. We don't have any trees hardly here. I have a chainsaw. I'll cut the trees down. The flood, if we get a flood, that'd be nuts. Tsunami, hurricane, or tsunami, I don't have to worry about hurricane, flood, but you need to think of how you're going to travel out of your area, and you need to look at the routes. If you come up with an alternative route, like you're going to walk down the railroad track to get out of there, you need to go look at it, and you need to, like, if there's a railroad bridge you want to cross, you need to go look and see if you can, because a lot of railroad bridges will have open trestle, and like no um that means the railings are open, and can your family members walk across that without freaking the heck out? That's a huge thing, just the mentally overcome. And it may not have a walking railing, path, a footpath. Can't think of what it's called, platform, a walking platform to go across to there, and then it may be locked just to keep non-railroad personnel up there, so you don't have access to that. You're not going to be able to get up there and walk across there in an emergency if that is your route of egress. Look at the bike paths. Okay. The bridges for the bike paths, are those accessible to you? Are they accessible by vehicle? Because that may be something you could exploit. Couldn't you? Do you have a smaller? I actually have some old Jeeps, 1946. I have a 46 CJ2. That thing's tiny. I can get that all sorts of stupid places. You have a side by side. You use a side by side to get the heck out of there. Boats, small boats, you can get out of there. A couple of jet skis can get you the heck out of there. All right, and then we get on to first aid. Take some first aid classes. Start with CPR. CPR, one of the things about CPR, you can revive for people with CPR. CPR, actually, the actual intent of CPR is organ preservation, to see if that person is an organ donor card. The chances of actually reviving someone once they've stopped, once their heart has stopped, can't quote me on this, it's really low. I think it's 1 in 9. After their heart stopped beating is 1 in 9. Okay? You keep going. It's organ preservation is the actual goal of the medical establishment. I know that sounds evil, but that's the intent of the medical. There's a lot of stuff our medical community does, and we'll get into that in the future. When we get, I have another one of these I'm going to do, and it's on cancer and sugar, Alzheimer's and cholesterol. All right, and I'll discuss the medical community. Okay, but anyway, but learn CPR. Okay, and that'll help out a lot. All right, medical supplies. I have a trauma bag in my car. And the funniest thing about my trauma bag is I've rolled up on a lot of accidents. But the funniest thing, my trauma bag, and I've fixed it since then, but I rolled up on my trauma bag. And if somebody was missing a limb, broke a bone, traumatic injury, had like impaled themselves on something or whatever, I could take care of them. Couldn't fix any boo-boos though. Minor abrasions, anything like that. Yeah, arterial bleeding, I had them covered. I had it all covered. But if they had a boo-boo, I could not help them. So I got this. These guys are great. All right. That is a kit. That's one of the larger kits from firstaidonly.com. All right. That you don't need one that big. They have kits that are around 120 piece kits that are really good. Then you're going to want to get like a flexible splint that you can find online. A couple other things. The other thing that it doesn't include is burn gel. Burn gel is something else you're going to want to get. And then also adhesive wraps. Now, adhesive wraps, that is the, how to describe it? It's like sticky on all sides, and it's it's almost like gauze that's adhesive, if that makes any sense. Adhesive wraps is what they're called. Don't buy them from medical vendors. They're like $5 a whack. You can get them at feed stores for like $1 a piece. Okay. So, but the thing is, like, my son lives up in Phoenix, and there are no feed stores in Phoenix. You get on the outskirts of Phoenix and you can start finding feed stores. Feed stores in Phoenix proper are hard to find. Anyway, go to a feed store and buy the adhesive wraps. The adhesive, and then when you get these adhesive wraps, because they're all impregnated with adhesive on all sides, what they will do when they're exposed to heat, like here in Arizona, they will like fuse and bond. So what you need to do is, when you first get the thing, take it out of the package, peel a little bit of it and fold it over and make what's called the buddy tab. You peel the wrap back and fold it over so you can always find it. Even when it fuses itself together, you can still find that lead edge to get the wrap going. I have some that are 20 years old and they still work great. I used one just a couple of months ago, and I know for a fact it's over 20 years old, and it worked just fine to hold a bandage on someone. Anyway, the other thing that you get inexpensively is garden shears. Okay, or trauma shears. Trauma shears. Don't buy trauma shears. They're expensive as heck. Well, you can buy trauma shears. Go ahead. But you also get, you can get less expensive ones that garden shears. Okay, if you're on a real tight budget, get the garden shears. They look the same. They're less expensive. Okay. Um, One of the things I mentioned in the at the beginning, knives. Okay, once again, not sponsored by anybody. This knife, this is one of the best knives I've found. I got this at a hardware store. This thing is a great shape for a knife, relatively inexpensive, under 20 bucks. Okay, got it. There is Lowe's, Home Depot, or Ace Hardware in the United States. And then if you can't get a knife that's right at 4 inches, might be too big for some people with crazy laws, there's also the folder. And this thing is great too. It's almost the same shape to the knife. One of the things, don't ever buy a fighting knife. Fighting knives are, and then also you're going to want to get a relatively nice knife sharpener. It's a diamond knife sharpener, a couple of strops back and forth. You can watch videos here on YouTube about how to sharpen a knife. One of the things, those are utilitarian knives. You can still fight with those, okay? Expression I came up with years ago, copywritten to this guy, me, Floyd Getchell. Can't use it. Can't do it anywhere. You can always fight with a hunting knife, but you can't hunt with a fighting knife. Meaning, okay, you cannot go dress a deer or a rabbit or whatever out with a fighting knife, okay? Fighting knives are just terrible for trying to dress out animals, but I can fight all day long with any of these knives. All right, always go get the hunting knife and throw it in your kit bag. All right, if you don't already have something of that nature. Fighting knives are just cool guy gear, ego based. Remember, your ego will get you killed. All right, you can fight somebody if it comes to that. God forbid it does. And always, when you go mental preparedness, go into a knife fight, you're going to get cut. Just put that in your brain and think, I'm going to get cut. And then when you do get cut, you're not surprised. You're able to continue on with a fight and win. Okay? Terrible to say. Anyway, so, all right. If you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and throw those into the comments on here, and I will go ahead and address those questions. I'm sure I will redress this later on, and we'll do another episode on survival here on the Unspoken narrative. The next episode I'm going to cover we're going to preview now. The Unspoken narrative is the reason I call myself a history scholar is I've actually made a couple of historic discoveries. We're going to cover those. We're going to cover my discovery about the pyramids of ancient Giza. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence, which I find really amusing here in our modern use of the word. We're going to talk about women in history, 10 amazing women that have changed history, the Bible's effect on modern life. I'm going to talk about 9/11 in a future episode, the Middle East, and there was this document that was signed among the some players in the Middle East that are still screwing things up to today. The mission to Mars and the how they're trying to the idea of habiting Mars, the atomic bombing of Japan and its place in history, because there are people that are trying to rewrite history now and they don't have all the facts and they're trying to paint the United States as bad guys, but there's more to the story than some historians are aware of, and I want to correct that. And then also the relationship between cancer, sugar, Alzheimer's, and cholesterol. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and go ahead and gather your kit, make a go bag for everybody in your household, and then one for each of your vehicles. Don't spend money if you don't have to. Everybody be safe out there. I'm Floyd Getchell. Guys, all take care.